Good afternoon, Peter. How you doing?
I'm very good, Tom. Great to see you again.
Great to see you too. So we're continuing with our conversation about selection and hiring, and today we really want to talk about treatment of candidates and how that impacts the whole selection process. I recently been reading quite a few articles about candidates' reactions to the selection process, not the interviewing so much, but just, kind of what happens to them with the lead up of it. And so a couple of things that came out of the research was that not all the candidates have a clear idea of who they're meeting with or how long they're going to have to be at the, location for the interview. Sometimes they go thinking they're going to be there for a couple hours and they wind up being there all day. And in some cases, as you know, people are taking off of work, so they've taken a half a day, and then all of a sudden they're kind of stuck with, oh, what do I do now? And of course, the other thing that people have always complained about is that they get very little feedback after the interviews. It just seems to, they leave and they think, well, I think I did okay, but I don't know for sure. And then they never hear anything ever again. It's kind of like going out to a singles bar, I guess, and
Yeah.
talking to people and nobody calls. So
Ghosted. Yeah.
posted, right? But it's not good with candidates, obviously. So I guess what I wanted to do is because you're in the business and you work a lot with this, and I'm sure that candidates have shared information with you too, as well as perhaps clients. What do you think about the state of communications with the candidate? Not so much the interview itself, but the lead up. Making sure they understand where they're supposed to go, who they're going to meet with, and how long they're going to be there. And then the other thing is what happens next.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, two great hot topics when it comes to kind of the overall candidate experience, right? I think
Right.
that's what I would call as the whole process, really, the candidate
Exactly.
experience. And I think,
Right.
coordinating and telling people where the interview is or how long it's going to be is one fundamental part of that experience, right? If you screw that up, then
Right.
it's not going to look good on your brand, right? And we all know how competitive it is to get great people. So
Right.
that's one problem. And then the second problem is obviously, post interview is, how did they get on? If I'm sure, I'm not sure about yourself, Tom, but when was the last time you went for an interview? But I've had interviews in recent, last couple of years or whatever.
Right.
After you've had an interview, you want to know it as soon as possible, right?
Right. Right.
Particularly if you won that job,
Mhm.
you can't stop thinking about it. And so,
Right.
I recently, just shared offline with you, but I mean, I was speaking to somebody this week who sent 200 applications off. She's a fresh grad, but nonetheless, 200 applications and got 3 responses back, and they were automated, which is better than nothing probably. And they were to tell her that she was not successful. So
Thank you very much. Thanks.
so was she was having an awful experience, and she
Right.
was wanting to know. She just wanted to know if she wants a job. Well, she's just got 2 degrees and she wants a job, and she's like wanting to know, what am I doing wrong? How can I improve? Okay, I've not got the job, but what can I do to make sure I get a job next time? So
Right.
respond. That is, I think, the number one problem. I think with the candidate experience is the lack of feedback.
Lack of feedback.
The lack of feedback.
But I'm thinking of you because you do actually a lot of executive recruiting, managerial and executive recruiting.
Yeah.
So a fresh graduate is not the typical client that's coming to you. I mean, this must have been a favor or something that you were doing for somebody.
Well, it's just some research I'm doing at the moment across the candidate experience. So I'm looking at all ranges. The sort of people in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and so
Right.
I want to get a balanced sort of sector. Enough people to sort of get a good balance of accurate information. So, but to go back to the more experienced executive, I think they arguably have a challenging time as well. If you look at the over 50s.
Right.
And I did a post on LinkedIn not long ago that went, viral, 500,000 impressions on LinkedIn around the world. That resonated a lot. And I was sort of saying that, if you're over 50, you can't get a job. I know it was a bit maybe provocative, but the point I was trying to make was over 50s, we've got an amazing amount of experience, lots of life skills, lots of competencies and experience that therefore having a multi-generational team is going to be for the benefit of your business. So you should be hiring over 50s.
Right.
Obviously, lots of people commented about how difficult it was for them to get a job.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think they face, they face the same sort of challenges as well. I think, they're applying for jobs on LinkedIn or job board or whatever, and they don't get any response. Some companies do the automated response.
Right.
And, I talk to people, do they like the automated response, or do they want a personalized response? Of course, everybody wants a personalized response. So if you've got 200,000 applicants, it's quite hard for one TA or whatever to be personalizing everything. I mean, maybe people are very demanding, and maybe it's not acceptable, but at the moment that's not possible. But
I think a lot of us feel that way. Yeah, you call any customer service number in the world, you go through this.
Yeah.
If you want to talk to customer service, press 2. If you want to know, my God.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of us are just tired of that automated response. I remember when those things came out 50 years ago, people thought this was genius. And of course, now it's a bane of our existence.
Yeah. But it's probably still, like, in my opinion, I still think it's better than getting no feedback. At least you can close it off. At least you can sign, okay, well, I've not got this one. Move on to the next one. Whereas if you got no feedback, it's like, well, did they even get my application?
Right.
The person I've been for an interview, no feedback. Is he or she okay? Are they going away? Are they busy? Have I still got probably better than nothing, but still, not an amazing experience. But look, going for an interview or looking for a new job isn't one of the most pleasant experiences of your life anyway, is it?
True enough. It's a stressful time for people. Obviously, people need or want a job, or they want to make a change or whatever, and they're looking forward to, once they've kind of gone through the mental gymnastics of saying, okay, I need to change.
Yeah.
Then they want to get on with it.
Yeah. It's like going to the dentist or, whatever.
Right.
Going through a divorce or something. It's not one of life's best experiences.
No. So let me ask you, you talked about the over 50s, but for this research that you're doing on, let's say, graduates going out looking for jobs, do you think it's tougher now for fresh graduates to find positions because of their lack of experience? Or
I don't think it should be. I'd have to. I wouldn't like. I think I need to probably talk to more graduates and.
Right.
But I don't think it should be because we're in the digital age, and I think it's so easy now to go onto LinkedIn or multiple job boards and apply directly.
Right.
If you go back 10, 20 years when that was emerging, it was a lot. It was pretty hard to go through the application form, online, and so you have to go, press next, and something didn't load up. You've got to start again, and multiple pages. And now it's like one click, in many advanced companies. So one click, or just upload your LinkedIn profile. So it's very easy in that sense.
Right.
And I think, again, in universities and educational, I believe they have like more advanced sort of career departments to, when you're in your final year and you've got opportunities you get advice and all that sort of stuff. I need to investigate that more, but I think it's there, but perhaps it's more competitive as well. And
I would be interested in knowing, for instance, here in Thailand, what colleges and universities are doing in terms of, do they have a placement office? Do they invite employers to come in? Do they do, recruiting sessions for employers with graduates so they can do a meet and greet on campus? Yeah. Or do they just say, get a LinkedIn profile and fire away?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, even when I was in the UK 15 years ago, I was working for a recruitment company. We were going to universities and helping, first we were trying to hire them for our hospitality work, but at the same time, we were also sort of advising them on, CV and all that. Mm-hmm. So that's been around for a long time. So I think that should be more advanced today than it was 15 years ago, I would guess. But,
I really don't know. It would be interesting to find out whether or not universities, I know in the United States and UK and Europe, universities have been involved in that kind of thing for years and years, and do a lot of outreach to businesses and invite them to come in, make presentations, have recruiting drives, particularly for the end of the junior year, end of the senior year. So I think those things kind of work, but I don't really know here how well the universities are doing that kind of thing.
I think it'd be interesting to know, like, if you think, like, okay, 2024, how many graduate positions are available, just total,
Right.
across them, and what are the skills that they're looking to recruit versus the fresh grads who graduate,
Uh-huh.
and how do they compare to the experiences and the skills that are required for the jobs that are available? Because I think there's a lot of jobs that just thinking of data and digital marketing and these type of jobs, which are, we know from research, like, we need millions of people to do that globally.
Right.
Thailand is no different. Hundreds of thousands of
Right.
people, engineers, all those sort of things. So who are these people that are getting graduated? Are they in the wrong degree and therefore they're not getting the opportunity? For example, maybe a more general degree like business,
Mhm.
versus a mathematics degree or an engineering degree.
Right.
It'd be interesting to know that sort of what's the gap.
But that speaks again to this gap, if you will, between employers and universities. I don't see a lot of that kind of thing happening, because if the universities are turning out people that are not really ready for the job market, and the employers aren't telling the universities, hey, quit sending out mathematics graduates. We need people who are data analytic or digital analytic focused. Maybe that would be an opportunity that we should all look at. Business has got a role here as well. We can't just stand there and throw bricks at the universities and say, you're not doing the right thing.
Yeah. Of course, then there's the people that maybe don't want to go into business and or they don't want to go into a corporate. They want to start their own business. Startups here, we know it's a sort of fashionable trend today, right?
It is.
So maybe that's one of the factors as well, that the qualified people actually think, well, hey, we can do that. We're going to be a LinkedIn or a TikTok influencer instead or something, right?
Right.
We're talking of TikTok influencers. I mean, that's another thing that I think is helpful in people trying to find work. The amount of you go onto YouTube and you say, well, how do I write a CV, or how do I ace an interview? Or,
Right.
somebody showed me the other day, like a TikTok Thai person on TikTok who's giving free tips on, CVs and interviewing on TikTok. She's got 50 odd thousand people following her. I mean, he didn't get that sort of 10 years ago or 15 years ago. So I think,
but sometimes they worry about the people who are going online and,
well, that's, yeah, that's very true.
what are they using as their basis for information?
This is true, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Misinformation, yeah.
so is the executive search business right now in Thailand tight? Is it, are you at all feeling the pressure of companies are being a little bit more cautious, or candidates are being a little more cautious, or?
I think a little bit of both, I suppose. I think companies are cautious.
Mhm.
I think candidates are moving, like I like to say, candidates sort of, people who decide to start looking for a job. It starts as like a passive candidate, and then
Right.
an explorer,
Right.
and then sort of an active candidate, and then so, like, I see a lot of candidates moving into that sort of exploring phase where they will reply to a message, and if and so they'll listen to opportunities. So
Right.
I think that's, partly because of the challenges that they've got in their own company, right?
Mhm.
If the budgets are being slashed, they're being forced to make headcount cuts or redundancies. They're getting pressure from headquarters or from their boss, and so it's not
Right.
making their experience, their job, an enjoyable time at the minute, and so that encourages people to see if the grass is greener elsewhere. So
Well,
people see
of the
that.
things that we always, it goes through cycles, but one of the things we always see is that, hey, you kind of alluded to this before with uh, with all the jobs that are becoming available with artificial intelligence and digital marketing and whatnot. Are there positions that are really hard to find candidates for because there just aren't enough people with that kind of education and experience, or is it, or are some industries like hospitality or healthcare or manufacturing suffering or booming one way or the other?
Um, I think I can only comment on what I can see, like more
Right,
a lot of it from speaking to other people or reading about it, because obviously we're focused more on the executive side of things. So
right, exactly.
you know, if you're recruiting a CEO or let's say a business leader for the country or
Mhm.
regional leader, there's only one position, and so unless that person's being made redundant, there's not a second position. So
Right.
same goes for the head of finance, the head of HR, the head of sales. So these ones, there's always people in these sort of positions, right? So
Hmm.
I think like more specific, if you wanted to say like chief sustainability officer, that would be a pretty tricky position to fill, because
Right,
it's a newish sort of concept, isn't it? Sort of, or a DEI
right,
director in
right.
Thailand. These are positions that would be pretty niche. And of course, as you've already said, I think, if you think of retail, omni-channel directors, or, head of digital, head of data,
Hmm.
of course, these are, the pool is obviously a bit more narrower there. So they're always going to be tricky unless you're looking at a more global search, I think.
Right, right.
Um,
Are a lot of your searches now beyond the country of Thailand, or are you dealing with candidates from the region?
I don't think not much has changed in that sense in
Okay.
terms of for the number one position. I think
Mhm.
it's the number one position is quite often open to any nationality,
Right.
but preferably somebody who's here in Thailand already or
Mhm.
recently been in Thailand.
Right,
They do, if it's an expat, then they do want people obviously who've got boots on the ground,
right,
ideally.
right.
For the functional leadership positions, that does still tend to be focused on
Mhm.
Thai nationals.
Right.
On the tech side of things, I think if it can be a bit more open, I think, because again, the market is a little bit narrower. So you see a lot more Indian nationals, maybe Malaysian
Mhm.
nationals taking positions like that. Same with finance, actually, a little bit.
Is there any difference? We were talking about this before, but is there any difference in the feedback, whether it's for executive search or mid-level search, whatever else, that they're not hearing back from the people that they interviewed with? I suspect in the executive recruitment business, you are in contact, or your executive search companies in contact with the client.
Yeah.
So you must be getting feedback.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, if the company's partnering with a search firm, then that's the job that's our job, and that's what we're getting paid for. So
Right.
yes, yeah, of course. And so the experience that the candidate has is always better, in my opinion.
Uh-huh.
Um, but just to go back to your point, obviously, when you're not engaging with a search firm, then I think I don't think it's necessarily that the experience is different from experience or function. I think it's actually different, more sector. I think, for example, I think the more advanced or just the best in class type companies, I think if
Uh-huh.
you think, like, I went to TikTok in Singapore about 2 or 3 months ago, and that place just looked like an amazing place to work, right? There was just full of color, full of positivity, lots of people going around. It's such a busy place. I think there's like 2 or 3,000 people there or something, but and they've got tons and tons of people in talent acquisition. Um, so the candidate experience, you can imagine, like I was going from a business perspective, but they're showing us around. We had pictures next to the TikTok sign. You can imagine that we've worked with them now, so we know that the candidate experience can be quite good with companies like that. And I think it's the same with tech companies. I mean, I can imagine Google in the US created an amazing candidate experience.
They did at one point in time. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think whereas some of the smaller, maybe smaller operations here, maybe it's a multinational company, but they've only got 50 people or something like that, and they're
Right.
so busy transactionally trying to make money or whatever that they give a little thought to the experience. And I think, yeah, I think there's still that. I'd say the majority of companies still operate where person going for the interview is a second-rate citizen. I generally still think that. I think you walk in stern, welcoming or something, get put in a room, not like this because this is beautiful, but like
Right.
interrogation room or something,
Uh-huh.
and if you're looking at a glass of water, and you're going for an interview, and it's I think that's what a lot of companies still do that.
Unfortunately, there's still a lot of what I would call arrogance towards candidates. Yeah, not all the time.
Yeah.
I think some people are better at it than others. And I don't know whether I don't want to say blame, but, put the onus on the hiring manager or whether it's HR's responsibility. And so when you are talking, obviously, if you're involved, companies come to you and they're looking for you to help them with that whole candidate experience. Are they aware of and concerned about the candidate experience itself?
Yeah, I mean, they're all, of course, they're concerned about it, but they've got, so many other things that they prioritize probably, things, whether it's the onboarding or whether it's the recruitment process that needs fixing, whether it's, a talent development program or compensation benefits, reward. Is like, yes, candidate experience is important, but I think they don't quite see what the ROI of it is enough of yet.
Mm-hmm.
I think what I try to say to them is, I sort of like the Airbnb sort of concept of like personalization, and I think the founder, I forget the name escapes me, but the founder of that looked at, say, Grab, or he's obviously referring to Uber, but when you take an Uber, as long as you've got from A to B, you generally just give it a 5-star.
Right.
Unless something's terribly gone wrong, you're not gonna, because that's the minimum you expect.
Right.
So he's like, well, how do we make a 6-star experience for our Airbnb customers? If that's what they expect, they get the room, they get hot water, they get a bed for the night. That's probably the 5-star.
Right.
So how do we make it better? What's a 6-star? So he started at 6-star and he worked all the way up to 10 stars.
Uh-huh.
And so, he was sort of, being creative. The 10-star was like the Beatles welcome, sort of from in America, thousands of people sort of cheer you on when you arrive or something. And so obviously some of these things are not realistic, but what he was trying to say is, well, a 6-star or 7-star is you walk in and you've got like a glass of wine and a handwritten note and the fridge is full and you've got a surfboard there, say, hey, the map to the beach is there.
Right.
And I think that's the same with the candidate experience. If you walked in and everybody stood up and cheered, hey, welcome Peter to the office, and then took you to the coffee shop and say, hey, we've got this coffee, take us, that would be, and maybe it's not realistic, but that is a different experience that, just sit in the corner there, mate, with a plant, a dead. I went into an office once and there was a dead plant in the corner. I was thinking, do I want to join this company?
The plants, my God, what are they going to do to me?
Yeah. So I think that's, you can try to personalize, if you can, I think, candidate experience is not just in recruitment or HR, is in business, is about personalization.
Right.
Today.
One of the things, I don't know if people measure these things or not, but do you guys or any of your clients keep track of the number of offers made versus the number of offers accepted?
I think for sure, TA leaders definitely do that. We don't do that so much because the volume is a lot less, right?
Yes.
It's like, obviously we can get the role and we fill it. So it's 100%. So
1-to-1.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm just curious if that's a discussion that they've had that said, we've extended 10 offers and we've got 8 acceptances. Is that a good, to your point, is that a 5? Is that a 4? What is that?
Yeah. They definitely do. Yeah. They definitely do.
Okay. So is there anybody in your mind that you talk to as a client who, without mentioning their name, of course, but who you think has really got it pretty well put together in terms of, they really pay attention to the candidate experience, make sure that the candidate is welcomed, given a, water, a coffee or whatever, and thanked at the end and seen on their way and communicated with. Is it very clear to you when you are working with a client, you take full responsibility for the candidate communication, or do you expect that they will also have some involvement in that?
Well, I mean, I think, again, it's like try to personalize the client experience. So I'm a big fan of this sort of experience concept. So I think it's like each client I try to personalize with how do they like to, how do we want this relationship to work? It's a two-way thing. We're a partnership, not just this is how we do things with all our clients, and therefore you have to abide to us,
Right.
or vice versa. They say, oh, we usually do it. It's like, well, actually, I think it'd be beneficial if we do this. So I think it depends on what the client is, but I think we're here to do as much of the work as possible because we get paid for it. So
Right.
but I would always, you always want the client involved at some point, in some cases, and some cases more, some cases less, particularly if it's obviously getting towards the end of the process, and you've got a candidate who's not, got a really great candidate who's just sitting on the fence a little bit, then you probably want the client to be more involved on the communication, because you want them to, they're going to be able to sell the job much better than we can.
Yeah, my feeling has always been that the hiring manager needs to be actively involved.
Yeah.
They can't kind of outsource that to you and the HR
Yeah.
person. The hiring manager is ultimately the person who's going to sell the candidate on the job.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, you can try very hard. HR can try very hard, but at the end of the day, who am I going to work for?
Yeah, exactly.
Who am I answering to?
Yeah.
Who do I want to be a part of this person's team or not?
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, and I think it's still, that's maybe a separate topic, but training for hiring managers is, or sort of being a little bit more forceful in communication with hiring managers is so important, I think, because of course they're busy. Perhaps they don't understand how difficult it is or whatever, but yeah, there are hiring managers who just sort of just want, I need somebody, I want them tomorrow, and I'll
That would be good.
Yeah. So yeah, I think education is a big part. But I think the problem I think I did a video recently about like hiring managers and HR relationship is fractured or a lot, and I think that's a problem.
I agree with you.
I think you have to. These guys have got to work very close together.
Right.
You've got to. The hiring managers got to. I was going to say hiring managers got to respect the HR, but of course they've also got to. I don't want to say earn the respect, but they've got to be credible as well. And so,
but at the end of the day, the person who needs to fill the job is not HR; it's a hiring manager.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So they really need to be actively involved, take ownership of it. And the other thing is that I really think they need to think very carefully about who they involve the candidate with. I mean, I've always heard, and I think it makes good sense. You never put anybody but your best and brightest in front of a candidate.
Yeah.
You don't want to throw in a C-class player to fill in the interview because you don't think the interview is that important. The interview is that important.
Yeah.
So you ought to be putting your A players into the game all the time when you do that.
Yeah.
And is that something that you have that conversation with clients?
Yeah, 100%. But again, that's I think that's a great benefit to why an external partner can sort of help, because I think sometimes the HR or the TA people are too close to the business,
right?
That they can't, they're not comfortable to have that conversation,
delivering the bad news.
or challenging opinion,
right?
When they know there's a concern or there's a problem. And I think an external consultant can do that. They're already getting paid. Providing it's obviously retained, they're getting paid, and they're getting paid for the advice.
The other thing is that you are probably getting feedback from the candidate it's putting in there. I interviewed this guy named Tom. He was just dead. I don't think he knew who I was. He didn't seem to care about me.
Yeah.
That's not the kind of impression you want. People who are in their A game, hail fellow, well met, engaged with the candidate.
Yeah.
So if you're getting feedback from the candidate that, Tom is, well, I didn't enjoy my time. Everybody else I met was fine, but he was terrible.
Yeah. And look, it can be examples like, the obvious ones are like when it gets to salary negotiation. Sometimes you need somebody. You need to tell the hiring manager, no, you have to offer that. You have to. If they're going in, if they're assuming that they're going to be able to play hardball with this candidate, they need to know that not on this occasion this candidate's not going to budge. So, and I don't think sometimes maybe internally they might not have that conversation, or it could be, like, this is the final interview, you know, like, I can just tell you the candidate's on the fence here, you know, he or she is interested, but, you know, they're already in a good job. Now you really need to sell this part of the process, or this point, or this point, and it really emphasize it and get them to do it. And so you don't know how hard internally are doing that.
Well, one of the things that I always would put an emphasis on is in the screening interview, you got to figure out how much the person's getting paid right now and kind of what their interests are. And by the way, can you provide us with a salary slip?
Yeah.
You know, so we can verify. And then, of course, the other thing is, I think the thing that sometimes gets miscommunicated is at the end of the interview, somebody ought to be telling the candidate, so I need your pay slip. And I also need you to sign this authorization to release information from your school or university or wherever else, so I can do a reference check.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
well, I think we've run out of time. But it's a great
keep going.
conversation. I mean, it's something that I think a lot of organizations are just not paying enough attention to.
Yeah. Well, there's the process, you know, getting the right process. How often do you review your process? What's where? I think you've always got to be improving that journey, aren't you? That journey, and like getting the feedback, listening, iterating, and then you know, rolling out new process, new policies. See what treat it like a tech company. That's what tech companies are doing with the platforms and the products, aren't they? Like, constantly looking for feedback from the customer.
Right.
And then revamping it. And that, we all know that a good candidate experience is essentially good engagement, and therefore that's good for business.
Super. Well, Peter, listen, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it very much.